Hello. Hello, hello. Just waiting for some people to jump on. So if you're watching this recorded, it'll take a couple seconds to get going here. A couple moments. Hi, Jane. This lighting is not good. All right. Okay, we'll get going here. We got a few peeps. All right. My name's Justin Harris. Welcome to my Monday Musings. Monday Musings is my opportunity to muse about whatever I want to talk about, things that are coming up with clients, keep everyone private, um, things I'm seeing in the industry, or things that I'm dealing with myself personally with regards to fitness and training. And for those of you who don't know and are new here, um, I've been coaching for almost 20 years. I've coached from beginners to Olympic medalists. I've worked with U.S. bobsled and skeleton, worked the Olympic test event in Korea in 2018. I've been behind 3 Olympic Games, Beijing, um, Pyeongchang, and Sochi by working in the weight room and different stuff like that. I've also was a professional triathlete for a little bit myself, national champ in high school, coached national champs. I did national champ and all Americans and all different stuff. So I have a breadth of information, wisdom, experience, failures, getting it wrong, sometimes getting it right. But I'm here to talk about the Olympics. Okay. And the Olympic Games are going on, the Winter Olympic Games. I have a high affinity for it, having been involved with it on the back end of things. And what I want to talk about today is what we see on TV is the joys and the heartbreaks, all right, of the people there. And it's this amazing journey. So, like, what really inspired me with this talk is watching athletes that I've worked with personally from in some capacity being on TV in the games. And this has happened since 2014. So 2014 in Sochi, I got to interact with USA Luge and bobsled and a little bit of biathlon. And the luge team really kind of like had like a family feel, and we would go out and grab a couple drinks and hang out with them. And I was mostly working with bobsled and skeleton. And I got to watch Erin Hamlin win a bronze medal, so the first Olympic luge medal for women ever. And it was really cool to see these people that I like talked to, helped in the weight room, was around different stuff, tried some exploratory things here or there throughout those different quads. And to watch her win an Olympic medal is like, wow, like I know them. It's pretty crazy, right? 2013, I had a few interactions. I got to see behind the scenes because I was in there in the summer and as they were prepping for the winter. Fast forward the next couple of years, I get the opportunity to do a master's, and instead of doing it on track and field where I was coaching, I remember working with an athlete who was like, the coaches don't really coach the start, like foot placement too much and skeleton a little bit. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. And it perked my interest of like in track and field, there's like really like one main way to set your blocks and like maybe 2 permutations of that, like major ones. So maybe 2 ways, and then you can start changing things from there. All right. And so at least it's a basis, and there's a lot of research there because track and field, there's way more athletes that do that in skeleton. And so long story short, I watched her and I was like, well, how much research has been done on the start? And there was only 9 articles. I'm like, let me try this. So I got to do my master's looking at the skeleton sprint start. So how spacing the foot resulted in acceleration qualities going down the track. All right. And so there was kind of this really interesting thing that I got to do, and it got me more exposure with the athletes. And then I worked 3 3 more summers. I believe it was 3 more. At the Olympic Training Center working with bobsled skeleton. So I was really part of the Pyeongchang, the 2018 games. And what was really neat there was like really starting to like see like who's going to make the Olympic team, who's on the World Cup team, national team, like who has a chance for a medal and different things. Now, the women, I didn't interact with a whole bunch, but going into the games when they started picking who was going to make the national team as the first selection, I got to work with Cody Bascu, who's now a triathlete in Ironman, which is awesome to see. And, I spent more time and had a good relationship so we can start looking at their start for driving, whether they start off the bar, like next to the brakeman and run and hit the bar, or if they're on the bar and there's timing issues, noise, all this stuff. And so we looked at it and we made decision based on a certain amount of trials that, that was his position. He ended up using the Olympic Games. Really cool to see. Fast forward a little bit. Now we get on ice up in Calgary. And what we did with Cody, Alana Myers-Taylor, who just won gold in monobob, was a little curious to what we were doing. And to be frank, is we didn't get to really run the experiment because we did it at the end of pushing competitively. And then we did it we didn't really organize it the way I felt comfortable with. And I got the data and I tried to make the best of it. And essentially it turned out to be not inconclusive. So I sent the report to her and the team, and it was inconclusive because I didn't want to like say something just to say something. Right. And so, she didn't change her technique or anything like that. That's fine. I wasn't her coach and I didn't feel confident that she should change her technique. It wasn't clear, but with Cody, it was clear that even when he was out of position and late in the way he wasn't used to starting, it allowed him to still push fairly well. In the Olympics, we're looking at like pure outliers and, like not statistically significant things. And this was like juxtaposed what I did with academia, and like I needed p-values of 0.05, right? 95% confidence intervals. And I'm like trying to explain to my advisor, who I just connected with this past week after a decade. And it was really awesome to spend some time with him. But I remember like saying like, hey, like there are like, I'm not going to wait for a p-value of 0.05. Like if it shows that it's like faster, I'm going to try it more and more and more. And so being in two worlds was really interesting. So fast forward to like, I got to work the Olympic test event. So brand new track in Korea, fly over there for 3 weeks and start like looking at the Germans, how many steps, all this stuff. I collected the data that was available to everyone other than my video data. And I was able to, keep things organized. And then we formed this partnership with Intel, the USOC and the IOC. So International Olympic Committee and the US Olympic Committee and Paralympic Committee. And so I got to share the data with them, and they were basically using machine learning and AI to like figure out like how to enhance the viewer experience. And I was trying to leverage that. So I had conversations about joining them, and being paid and hired, and nothing ended up panning out, and I didn't get to work with them. So anyway, it was cool to be like on the back end and really see the people that I knew there, like on TV, like worked with them, interact with them, shared video with them, like coached some of them, not all of them. Some wanted coaching, some had other coaches, right? But to like see them and have it really be surreal is a pretty neat thing. Just while I'm chatting about this stuff and my experience with the Olympics, and I will get to a point, but a little background on it because I don't talk about it a lot. If you have any questions, I see you guys are talking to each other, so I'm all here for it. But if you have questions, put them in there. I'll go through Facebook and Instagram, or Facebook and YouTube. Put the comments in. And if you have questions about training and in general, or any comments, that'd be great. So anyway, I didn't get hired, so I kind of stepped away from it. And, it was kind of like this pursuit. And then finally, fast forward a few more years, like going into Beijing, I had a friend reach out to me who was with USA Luge, and like, we need a COVID coordinator and whatnot. And it wasn't like I wasn't going to go to the games and stuff like this, but I got to work with USA Luge. But anyway, back to Pyeongchang, like Chris Mazur won a silver medal, and he wasn't having a great season then. And he just like let it go, let it rip. He almost won gold, won silver. And that's someone like I've interacted with a ton. Like we've done some accelerometer on the sleds and different stuff, like him and Tucker West. Well, I don't know if I did it with Chris, but I worked with their coach Banked and Matt, the athletic trainer, and Ambrose, the weight room coach, head strength and conditioning coach. Anyway, we did some work. So it was really awesome to see him win the medal. And, the other women and people that I was around, it was cool to see. Now we go into Beijing, and I actually started working with Kelly Curtis, who was looking for Cortina games in skeleton, and just to coach her on her starts. And we weren't even thinking, like there was an outside chance she can make it to Beijing. And she made it. She was an Olympian. And so it was like first person, like I felt like coaching, analyzing her videos, paying me to coach them, that made the Olympics. And it was super cool. And she's an awesome, like low key person. I remember being up at like 1 a.m, watching her runs and like texting her in between to help her out and coach her, which was pretty crazy. So, it was amazing, but her whole thing was Cortina, and she wanted to have a kid. She moved to Italy. She's in the Air Force, like reserve for or world athlete program that they have in the military. Awesome person. And she ended up working with the coach, the star coach, who was more involved with the team, and it made a lot of sense. Like, use the coach that's there. Okay. So, but like seeing her, she finished like 21st. I don't think she made the top 20 to continue on. It was her first Olympics, and she's still growing slider. But to see her get 12th, I think she got, was really cool. And I was able to text her, and I was telling my wife, like, I don't want to try to like jump on the bandwagon and like claim all this stuff, which I saw coaches doing all the time. Like if they walked in the Olympic Training Center, they would say that they, they coached Olympic athletes. And it's something like I an Olympic medalist. It's something that I get to say that I was able to do, even past Olympic medalists like Justin Olshan. Like I was there at 8 weeks. He won gold in 4-man with Steve Holcomb, RIP. And anyway, it was a great experience. So Beijing, I was on the outside. And this one, I've been totally on the outside. But all of a sudden, I see like the flag bearers, Frankie Del Duca, who's someone like I coached every summer. Like I wasn't his, how it worked was like I wasn't the architect of training plans. I was, the facility coach to like help monitor, provide video, coach them in ways that, they wanted, whatever level. Some was intense and every day and a lot of feedback. Some was just like, hey, give me a little bit of information. Like that one, track and field hurdler who also did bobsled, who was interesting to coach, who's also involved with MTV challenges and stuff. Anyway, so to watch people like Frankie Del Duca be the flag bearer, and now he's sitting in 4th for 2-man with Josh Williamson, which like I saw Josh's first push ever on ice. And I'm going to like find that video and send it to him, regardless of what ends up happening. But it was so cool. Like Ashley Farquharson in luge, like she won bronze. Like Ashley like was always receptive to, in engaging with like I was the COVID coordinator. So I had to make sure that like, if we're leaving Latvia, like, and going to Germany, how do you enter Germany? What testing protocol do you need? Like this is 21, still COVID-y. And like, what do you need to leave Latvia? Then it's like, like all this. And China was crazy. I remember talking with the US ski COVID coordinator, like we're trying to get Michaela Schifrin and all the athletes into China. And it was like a zero tolerance policy. The issue was like all the tests. So China approved embassies to be nasopharyngeal. And those sites were approved, but those sites had shifted to a saliva test because it was cheaper and just as accurate, but China didn't want saliva tests. So it was this mad dash. Anyway, so to see Ashley win a medal, see Kelly, do well, even though we haven't worked together in a while, see Frankie hold the flag. And I know how much it meant to him. He's a real patriot. Alana Myers Taylor, like she's gotten several silvers at every games. Yes, silver in Sochi, silver in Pyeongchang, and then she just won gold in Monobob. And she has 2 special needs children. Her husband Nick is like the nicest man in the world. Like she's an advocate for everything. Like it's just awesome to see. But where I'm getting to with this is like, I don't believe elite models are the best models for us to use. Having seen these humans, which I'm like, humans, like they are human. However, like the strength and the speed and the amount of pressure they can handle and all these things, it's like they're superhuman and it's amazing to see. And, the pressure is big and they find they're just like, as you might be good at math, like they're good at like, like executing like under high pressure. And I just think like keep watching it. All events are amazing. Even curling where you can drink a beer, you know, I was curious about that one the first time I saw it. Like they can drink a beer and still call themselves Olympians during it. And then we got snowboarding and surfing and all that stuff. So it's great to see the diversity. But when we're looking at elites, like the models that work for them don't necessarily work for us. Just same thing. Like, the models that work for CEOs of mega, like Mag 7 companies and different stuff, like it's not really the lives that we live. Right. And so we listen to them because like we strive to be like way up there and, they got it all figured out. And having been around these athletes, like they still get nervous. They still underperform at times. They still have tough times. They still get irritated and angry at things. Like there's all these things that happen that do actually, bring him back to like they're kind of human, like really human. All right. I remember talking to an athlete, and he was in Austria and he's like, Justin, like I'm just kind of lost. Like he was a track and field athlete and he didn't have as much feedback in bobsled. Like there's two people pushing. It's not like just your time. And I just reminded him through things. And we're 2 weeks out from the games. He's going to be Olympian for the first time. And so like people get nervous. Anyway, I want you to enjoy the games. I want you to think about being careful with reverse engineering from elite models, whether it's business or sports, because it sounds warm and fuzzy, but it doesn't always track back down to what we're doing. And so if you look at what you're doing and you can get a little bit better or use them for inspiration, I think that's totally fine. What Kipchoge does, what Connor Mance does, what Sarah Hall does, like so on and so forth, right? But I think we need to put in context that we're not sleeping 14 hours, 12 or 14 hours a week. We don't have it all on the line. And so we need to keep these in mind. As I said to one client, you're not going to be an Olympian. And I meant that as like, you're not making money from this and whatever. And she still uses that against me. So anyway, watch the Olympic Games and maybe you can take this as I'm bragging. It's just not something I talk about a lot. Because I've always was miffed at people who claim they coach so-and-so or whatever. And just to be around these athletes and to know them and have their numbers in my cell phone and to be able to message them and they message me back is a pretty cool experience. And I try to take those lessons I've learned from there and bring it to you. And the irony is those athletes that I worked with listen to me way more with less validation. And they were curious, they were available, they were open, they were also clear when they didn't want something. And yet a lot of my clients question the process, question me, question all these things, which is healthy, but I would keep that in mind. So anyway, Facebook and YouTube, if you have any questions, check in with me. Put a comment and it'll pop up on the chat. And let's go backwards here. So what's up, Karina? How's your body healing? How you doing? What's up, Roberto? What's up, Paul? What's up, Claudia? What's up, Pierce? How you doing, man? What's up, Becky? What's up, Neil? Callan? Yeah, the luge is the fastest sport, and I think they've like kind of tuned it down a little bit, but I think the fastest speed ever recorded on ice is like 93 miles an hour. And I don't know if anyone follows like Jason Kelsey from Philly, well, probably Taylor Swift fans and Kelsey's and whatever, but I'm looking at Becky here, who's a Philadelphia native. He did bobsled in Salt Lake City in Utah and Park City. And he's like, I was bruised, crunched down, like, and people ask me, like, did you ever get in a bobsled or skeleton? Fuck no. No. As all the athletes told me, they're like, It's not like a roller coaster ride. It's like literally get in a trash can and like jump down a mountain and just get banged around. And that's what happens. I mean, the drivers and the brakemen or the people in the sled, like they get concussions because they're slapping around and their head like hits and they get concussions even though they didn't crash. What's up, Marnie? What's up, Liz? Yeah, Lucian saying I'm always just impressed by their training. Yeah, you all should like go watch it one time. Like the sound, especially 4-man bobsled and bobsled and 2-man for the men and women. Like this sound is like a fucking freight train coming down, and you're just like, whoosh. I mean, in the walls. Like I got to walk the track, Lake Placid, Winterberg, Park City, and Pia Chang for the games. And the walls, I mean, they're literally walls. The curves are like straight up. I'm not talking NASCAR. I'm like literally, I'll post a picture, and you guys can see it. It's fucking insane. So if you can ever get up to Lake Placid and watch a World Cup, the energy is great. It's a great, I highly recommend it. And it's not expensive to stay up there. What's up, Mark? All right. It's the training I need, but I can totally see Justin screaming at the TV during the games. It's got to be cool to watch people. Yeah. My wife laughs because like when Ashley won bronze, we were at the gym and I was like, hey, I got to we were shooting hoop in between riding the bike and doing a quick lift. And I was like, I got to sit down. And she's sitting there and I was like, yes, like she won a medal. Like I was just like insane. Like, because we do this with patriotic and like just do it anyways, but to do it when you know someone, it's just like, the doubts they've had. I've seen athletes crying thinking their season's over and then they're at the Olympics and in 6 months. So it's really cool to see. So yeah, our coaching call would be 4 hours, but you can keep asking me. What's Nazreen? There's my Olympian. I know. I love these stories. Our call last week could have gone on hours. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What's up, Claudia? Doing different. What's up? Yeah, no, they still overtrain and do stuff like, like I remember seeing this, like they train on 4-week blocks because they can recover a little bit more, and they would do an overreaching block. And sometimes the athletes would they would use pre-workout to get really amped up in the morning and sprint heavy, and then like go eat lunch and then take a nap and then come back in and use pre-workout, which is like nearly amphetamines, like smelling salts, and they would just like get jacked up. And I saw one athlete who was a very good athlete and should have made the World Cup. It was like August, and he was like with his coach, they were doing really heavy training, and he just he never came back from that. He never was able to recover, and because you basically have to be on point like September for dry land combine stuff and sprints and testing, and then October when you get on ice, and then the teams are pretty much picked in the summer almost. So what's up? It's Kristen, baby, my wifey. All right, multisport. Love Kelsey, not a Swiftie. Sorry. Yeah, that's all right. I wasn't talking about you. All right, Neil, what's the biggest way you've changed as a coach as a result of coaching and being around those athletes? Okay. So one thing I want to say, if my microphone dies, just let me know. I'll unplug everything. I forgot to charge them. So one thing I noticed, well, twofold. One, internally in myself, I was scared shitless to coach them because I was told they're not going to listen to you. You don't have pedigree. You didn't go to LSU or run for a big time program. You don't coach at a big time program. And I wasn't a sprinter. I was a distance runner. I only been coaching sprinters for 3 years. However, I used all my skills to get to know the athletes, connect with them, spend time with them, ask them what they need from me. How can I provide? And just would sit down and say, tell me what you see. I want to learn because I want to be around here and help you guys out. So for me to have the courage to do something where I wasn't an athlete in, but still realize I can create positive change. So after that first summer, I had the head of who oversaw all Winter Olympic sports for performance related things, say, hey, we should hire you. So that was and all the athletes were happy. We sat down. He's like, I thought all the athletes were going to be upset, but many of them have come up to me personally. And so that just gave me a lot of confidence that even though I was scared shitless, and I mean, I'd be there 9 to noon outside coaching sprints, and then I'd sleep for 30 minutes because I was just exhausted because of worrying and thinking like they're going to like find me as a fraud. So to really like have the courage to do that taught me internally. Now, being around these athletes, I've kind of touched on this. I would say the biggest thing I took away from it is that they do the basics better than anyone, and they're never afraid to come back to them, and they're never better than the basics. And somehow, like for us, like we're better than it, and we don't want to do the basics, and all the aerobic runs are boring, or all the drills are, like whatever. I don't do a lot of drills because a lot of people don't do them, but I would say that's the thing I learned the most was internally, like I can do it and I can coach at this level, to a certain degree, one might say, and that, yeah, like they're going to do the basics really well, and they put a lot of intention behind it. But again, some people overfocus and got too granular, too reductionist, and some people weren't serious enough. But yeah, I think that's the two things. Ryan Hall had that too, right, from overtraining. Yeah, Ryan Hall is an interesting character. What's their fueling look like? Okay, for bobsled, skeleton, luge, they need to be heavy. So I sat in a session with the nutritionist, and the nutritionist was like, you have to eat McDonald's. I was like, what? And it's like, they just burn too many calories. Like they're burning something like 6,000 calories, like the same amount as endurance, like top endurance athletes, like professionals, like sprinting as much as they're doing, the lifting that they're doing, it's like really high metabolic costs, and they have a really high work capacity. It's just for like really high power explosive stuff. The things I saw these athletes do was freakish. I saw a guy, Hakeem Haas, I think was his last name. No, Hakeem Abdul. Oh man, Hakeem was his first name. Yeah. And literally the Gold's Gym logo, like that's what the bar looked on. He had 900 pounds on it. Was it 9 or 7? I think it was 900 pounds. And it was 700 pounds. And the bar was totally bent. And he did a 3/4 bottom up squat. So he got under it, little bend in the knees, and he boom, like up. And it like just, he moves so fast and it bounced. My back would have been broken. And just freakishly things. So luge athletes. I saw one guy, he wasn't even an Olympian. Luge athletes have to be really strong pulling. This guy weighed I think he weighed like 70 kilos, like 160 pounds, something like that. And he did a weight. Was that 100 kilos? No, he almost did his body weight, like double his body weight on a pull-up. Crazy shit. So fueling, the cafeteria almost gets sick of them because like they'll make like giant, like, not ribeye steaks, but big giant steaks. And like, they'll put 3 20, like steaks like this big, like as big as my head. They'll put like 3 of them on the plate and they'll eat all of them and go back for more. It's just insane how much they ate. To the point where they had training camps, like the federation had to chip into financially to the cafeteria to make sure there was enough food because the bobsledders ate it all. And if the biathletes came later, because they had longer training periods, like there almost be no food left. It was crazy. So there was some contention, but yeah, they would always come back for dessert and then they would go out to McDonald's again. And, but also too, in the winter, they're picking up these like 200 and 400 pound sleds and moving them all over the place. And it's cold out. So to stay warm, it burns calories. So they end up losing some weight. Now there's a couple athletes that are like the men. So I think the women were trying to be around 160 pounds, like 160 pounds. And with a lot of muscle for bobsled. And bobsled men were trying to be somewhere like 200, like 210 was on the light side, and like 245, like 230, 220 to 230. Because the total weight of all the athletes plus the set like can't exceed a certain amount. Otherwise it's unfair. So they eat a ton. And luge, one of the things with luge is they say fat is fast. And so like literally fat, like, like jiggly, because acts as shock absorbers. So if you see them going down the track, like there's little bumps and stuff, and if they have some cushion, some absorption for that, it smooths out the ride. Because if you're like a bobsledder and like almost, they had like men would have like 3 to 6% fat. The women would have like 8 to 12, something like that, or maybe more. I remember being there for skin fold testing, but the women, I was, like they were like, if I'm like really lean, like I'm just bouncing off the sled. So it's not good. What's up, Kelly? What's up, Justin? Yeah. So anyway, what other questions do you have about the Olympics, Winter Olympics in particular? I spent a little bit of time with biathlon, skiing and shooting. Those athletes are phenomenal. So I met one of the Olympic medalists. She was German, but she was dating an American guy. I became good friends with the guy and lived with my first year with the gentleman who was a sports scientist for biathlon. So I got to spend some time with him and his, now wife, and got to ride with Sean Doherty. I think he was in the Olympics this year. And Paul Schumer, he was in the Olympics. He came from a knee issue, borrowed his bike all summer long because he wasn't riding it. So yeah, just a lot of cool stories. So curious what you guys, any training questions with the Olympics. We're talking about just some of my experiences that I don't talk about too much, and some of the connections I have when I worked with U.S. bobsled skeleton at the Lake Placid Olympic Training Center in the weight room, and doing stuff with working with USA Luge. So talking about that a little bit, and that elite models aren't always the best models to trickle down to us. And I say elite, right? So top CEO is going to have a little different life than I have today. And so I can take some of that for inspiration and thoughts, but it does, from a training standpoint, elite athlete stuff doesn't always trickle down. They spend more time training, so more time can be easier. They have more time to rest and recover and different stuff like that. What's up, Mariana? How you doing? Skiing is the same too. Need meat to take the impact. Yeah. So another interesting story, and I told Claudia this, but I was a finalist. I applied for a PhD program with US Ski Team after my master's, and it came down to 4 of us. I was actually in Calgary working with. I worked with Akwasi Frimpong, the hope of a billion. He was originally from Ghana, and he grew up mostly in Amsterdam, and he ran for the University of Utah. And so I got to spend time with him and his family, and I coached him on the starts for a season. And he made the Beijing Olympics, but unfortunately he didn't make these Olympics. Amazing guy, amazing story. Like, he was like the top Kirby vacuum salesperson in all of the US, like total charisma, like when you see him. Amazing guy. Where was I going this? Oh, anyway. So I applied for a PhD program with US Ski Team, and the PhD program, they were really looking for athletic trainers or physical therapists, but I think I was the only coach to come at the question. And it was essentially, the whole program was, you got paid like $45,000 to live in Tahoe, which to be paid for your PhD is not too bad. And to live in Tahoe would have been great, in theory. But the PhD program was to help those who had ACL reconstructive surgeries to get back on the podium and to win medals. So not just to return to ski. And so my view was to kind of take a more holistic approach across the board, use our partnership with Intel and computer vision and our equipment sponsors and stuff like that. Anyway, I didn't get the role, but I was top 4. I was close. Mariana, sorry I missed this. Did you grow up doing winter sports, or how did you get involved with skeleton? All right. I didn't talk about how I got into it, so it's a great question. Basically, it goes like this in a super short series of events. I was coaching distance runners. I wanted to be a head coach. In order to be a head coach, I needed my master's, and I wanted to be able to coach all events in track and field. I saw a sprint job open up at a local college. I knew the coach, but I wasn't a sprinter or sprint coach. or field events. I threw javelin in high school a little bit and scored some points there at conference, but I declined it. My dad's girlfriend sent me the thing and said, you should apply. It's a great school and whatever. And I'm like, I don't coach sprinters. She's like, Justin, I applied for a lot of jobs and got them that I didn't think I was qualified for. Like, you coach people, go for it. And so I talked to the guy. He's like, I don't want you. I don't want someone like you. Don't need another distance coach. And I just said, I gave him my spiel. Like, I don't know how to set up the blocks, but I know how to coach people. This before bobsled skeleton. And so I ended up getting the job. I only made 10 grand a year, and it was full time. But long story short, in my development, I saw Brad DeWeese talk, who was the head strength and condition at Lake Placid. He was talking about his work with Lolo Jones and Lauren Williams, track and field athletes, transition into bobsled. And a lot of things clicked for me. And I was done with conferences. I just wanted to go and watch practice. So I emailed, didn't know who he was, searched his PhD. I searched him, found his PhD, 106 pages, read all of it. It was on the U.S. is struggling with developing coaches for Olympic level talent, to coach at the Olympic Games and Olympians. And so I use that like, hey, I want to be coaching at the Olympics, blah, 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 this and that. Like, I would love to come, like, be a fly in the wall. I'll move weights around. I'll make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I'll move cones around, whatever. Right. And so he's like, yeah, sure. This is February. And I'm looking for June, an internship or whatever. And he's like, yeah. He was just like, sure. And then didn't hear from him. Finally sent one more email. And he's like, I'm leaving. They need a coach. They put me in contact. I got hired, not by the USOC or bobsled or skeleton, but by a deco. So they, like insurance reasons or whatever. And yeah, I worked there that summer. And that's how I got my foot in the door. And the joke is with the guy who is assistant and is still now the head coach and took over, the head strength and conditioning coach, Ambrose Serrano. I was like, bud, I just had a heartbeat, didn't I? And he's like, no, I thought, and I was like, I had a heartbeat. He's like, yeah, we just needed someone, but it worked out. So that's how I got into coaching at the Olympic Training Center. And I only been coaching sprints for 3 years and really only working with weights in that format with 1 year. So I just learned everything I could from him, asked some questions, had dinner with him, and did everything I could by observing and asking the athletes, what do they need me to point out or see? And so I got to train my coaching eye. And then I worked with one athlete, Morgan, who was like, hey, come watch me start. And in the summer, they have like a roller coaster system that kind of goes down and up, and then they slide back that they can practice. And yeah, I saw it, then decided to make that my master's research to get me my foot in the door even more. And yeah, that's not the shortest story, but also not the longest story. So yeah. And I always joke, like, I'm the scrawny guy, like the women could bench press me. And like I said, I felt like a real imposter for a while. But I remember one guy, BJ Cole, who was actually the push coach. And I was a little, like, I was working there, and then he got hired over me, and I think he ended up being a little bit better candidate in the long run, but him and I worked really well together. And I remember, like, the athletes won a medal, and yeah, I remember him texting me in Korea, because we had spent time in Korea for the test event the year before the games, and he texted me, he's like, hey man, you're a big part of this, like all this stuff, like what you're doing. So that was really, really cool. What's up, Christy? Yeah, heartbeat and curiosity and dedication. What a good story. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's half the game is like getting your foot in the door. And then, I remember my aunt saying this one time. She's like, I never really like, and she was a big CFO for a big restaurant group. I remember saying, like, just work your ass off and figure it out. Like, you shouldn't have to ask for a raise. Like, people should realize you're, like, if you weren't around, they would be worse off. And so I try to take that with me. My dad taught me, like, to take pride in the work I was doing too, even if I was shoveling, sidewalks when I was a kid and different stuff like that. So yeah, thanks for asking that. So, yeah, I'm coming off a knee issue and have experienced some discomfort. Ball of left foot and lower back when breaking in the Saucony Endorphin Pro, running the Tampa half on Sunday, and I'm struggling with whether or not to give the shoes a go for performance gain. All right. So you're running the Gasparilla half. I have a client doing that. He's 71. He's back at it after a heart valve replacement. He's a healthy dude. Otherwise, it was just a defect and a pacemaker. All right. So I'm going to say this is not the Olympic Games. And if you're coming off a knee issue and you have discomfort, I would first be, if you're comfortable, you can go fast. So like this happens in triathlon and bike racing, where people will get into positions where they might be more aero and fast, but they can't stay in that position for a long enough time, and therefore they don't get the advantages. So I feel the same with super shoes. Like some of my clients have real issues with them, their Achilles. Like the first time I can take shoes out of the box and go run 20 miles in them and be fine when they're brand new shoes. I did that. I did a 90-minute run in Alpha Fly 2s, the first time I've ever been in carbon plated shoes, and my calves were tore up for a couple days. So they are faster, but it does come at a cost sometimes. So if you're having problems with them, get out of the carbon plate. Make this event your comeback, the start of your comeback, not the pinnacle, the peak. All right. So listen to your body. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Use the shoes that are going to put you in the best position to be healthy and come off the race to keep growing into your season. All right. I don't know if you live down in Tampa. I know this is like peak racing season for Florida, but yeah. All right. Never raced in super shoes before. Yeah. Again, like if being in the shoes is hurting your feet and your knee or hurting that stuff, then I would not be in them. All right. If you live in Orlando. So yeah, this is like primo race season for you guys, and it only gets hotter, but see this as an opportunity to build through it and go from there. So Becky says Saucony, OG, Endorphin, Elite were great out of the box. Should not have changed them. Yeah. Every several years, they got to change them, make them new, try to upgrade them. Not every upgrade is an upgrade. That's just how it rolls. So, but globally, use the shoes you trained in. This is like as a track guy, you don't want to try anything too new, but if the race is this weekend. So, yeah. Yeah. So use the shoes you train in from Claudia. Yeah. So anyway, all great stuff. All right. Any other curiosities about the Olympics? Direct questions about that training? Trying to keep these. I'm not trying to do anything with these. I'm just curious if you guys have anything. There's a few of you on here, Facebook and YouTube. If you're on, I'm curious. Doesn't look like anyone is. Sorry. Training questions. My Monday musings. Be careful using elite models for you. We're not elite. So Marathon Graham. Okay, Mariana. I have an Olympic question. Sorry. I've just been super invested in learning about new sports. But what do you think about the pressure on Ilya? Okay. So I'm not trying to be a dude here. Figure skating is, I appreciate the athleticism. I have not watched a single one. There's other events going on, so I watch them. Now, doesn't mean I don't have some input on this. The pressure, yeah, I feel like the U.S. just did so much on them. Yeah, so this happens. Listen, choking is like, there's a lot of research on choking and different things. And, for a lot of the winter sports, like they can't really financially make a career out of it consistently. All right. And so figure skaters, I think they have a better shot at it. Ice hockey players for sure, like some other things. But the bobsledders, like the drivers sometimes own their sled, not recently, but they own the runners, the metal pieces on the ice. And each set of those is like 15, 20 grand. And so they'll have multiple sets. If it's snowy out, they're fat runners, skinny runners, one's for snow, one's for hard ice. If it's like negative degrees, like they do all this stuff. They own it. Like going into Olympic gear, like drivers and bobsled might be like, they could be like $80,000 in debt. And so when they make the Olympic team, they're getting sponsorship and whatever, and they don't win that much when they win a medal. Russia, like in the Sochi games, paid their athletes, gold medalists, like $100,000 for a win. It's almost like the Hunger Games, and they're the victors. Like they're set for life. Or in the US, it's like $25,000 or something. It's like chump change after taxes. So to get back to, the question really about, you said this, mental health. So like Simone Biles, right? Mental health. All right. Track and field athletes, like there's plenty of people who quote unquote crumble under the pressure. And the thing is like, you're trying to like be spokesman, you're trying to have partnerships, sponsors, and then you have all these media obligations, and then you're like got to go out and perform. And so I think it's really challenging to handle that. And I don't know, is it his first games? Oh, hello. Okay, thank you. Yeah. All right, I'm back. Can you guys hear me? No. Hun, I'm talking to the stream. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Still can't hear me? Okay, it's working. Yeah. So I have this like thing, I have to like all this stuff I have to connect in, and I didn't charge it, and so it died. All right. So Simone Biles and like was an example of this. And so there's so much pressure on them, like to get sponsorships, to uphold the sponsorships. You're talking like Procter and Gamble, Johnson and Johnson, like like anything, right? And then you go to the competition, like what it means for them. I remember like going to nationals at high school at this low level, and then coaching national NCAA nationals for Division III, and then being at World Cups that really matter and different stuff. And it's like, it's really easy to like, people get into this concept that we have to rise to the occasion, but I really believe, I forgot who said it, Aristotle, someone, it came where I heard it was an MMA coach, mixed martial artist coach, and it was like, we don't rise to the occasion, we sink to the level of our training. And so it could be really challenging, right? Like we've seen it across the board. And remember what was the Nancy Kerrigan and that whole thing, right? Like there was all this drama coming in. It was more, but it is tough on them, right? And it's a little bit like the Hunger Games. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but it's like they're the victors in a sense, Olympians, and everyone wants a taste of them. Everyone wants to, be around them. And it can be, I'm not speaking from direct experience, it could be really challenging. And so like they'll shut their phones off, from family and everyone, and just hide. It's really like it can be a really tough place when you're at the pinnacle. And so, yeah, it's challenging. They'll be better for it. They'll work through it. Like I think of, I saw this I watched Premier League soccer and World Cup stuff, like the Euros a few years ago, Marcus Rashford and Saka, I forget his last name, who plays for Arsenal, like they missed penalty shots, and they were like young. They were like late teen. I think they were just like 20 or 21 years old, and everyone went like crazy that they missed and all these things. And they've been so much better after that, once they got out of that hole. So, pressure is a privilege. Kobe Bryant said it, and I really do believe that. So, not everyone can handle it. And I was kind of talking about this, the Olympians and Olympic medalists and stuff being, like kind of, I call them humans, but like superhuman, because, they really have to deal with a lot of pressure. And so this is why, like, when I had an athlete who qualified for nationals, it was like their junior year, And, she got better and better in the 400. And then the junior year, she like qualified. And I was like, look, our goal is to like qualify. However, if we qualified, then we're not there for a parade. And this is what happened. I heard this through the grapevine. It's like, there are people who qualify for the Olympics and then they're there for the party. They go and perform, they do the best they can, but they're like, I know bobsledders were out partying like 2 nights before the race because bobsled is at the end. So they're out having fun in the Olympic Village doing all this stuff. And then they had a shit performance and their teammates were upset. So, not everyone handles the pressure well. But anyway, it's, yeah, we got her there, and then she was nervous. And for me, like inside, I'm like, if this athlete doesn't like become an All-American, she's one of the top 4 or 5 runners in the country. Like if she doesn't do it, no one's going to believe that they're capable of doing it. But I never put that pressure on her. I remember we watched like an X-Men movie, like to kill some time. And it was like very existential. And she started crying. I'm like, hey, let's step out. She's like, I'm just so nervous. And I'm like, great, beautiful. And she's like, looked at me. I'm like, it means you're human. Like I expect you to be nervous. That's okay. That's normal. We're not trying to do this without feelings. It's okay to have feelings. And someone asked Mike Tyson's coach, not the best human in the world, but someone asked Mike Tyson's coach, does Michael experience fear? Like, how is he so fearless in the ring? And his coach or trainer, Casamato or Tony something, they basically said, everyone, like people are brave and people are cowards, both experience fear. The people who are brave don't let their fears negatively dictate their actions or something like that. And so my idea was like, you can't be courageous or brave without the presence of fear. And so, yeah. So anyway, her first experience, she won her heat, made finals, except it was a 9-lane track. And so I think, or she was guaranteed to be All-American, which was great. She finished 4th. She PR'd at finals. And so that experience of like the nerves and work through, she got out of it. But there was 2 women who finished in front of her returning and really ran fast in her. Then her senior year, she's like, I want to win. And I'm like, I didn't make it about me. I made it about her. Like, what do you want to do? And so we went and tackled all these things. But the second time we went, the exposure and experience and the stress of the first time we went there, and she was nervous throughout the season and different stuff. And we worked through it and she performed really well. And then, like she was the number 1 seed, no one beat her all year in the 400. And then she went out and ran. And it was like, hey, for trials, we're not going to run all out. We're going to save it, but we're going to run the first 200 the same. And then she shut it down and she qualified first. She had preferred lane. And then the race day was a windy day. And a month earlier, we were like, she was saying, I don't race well in the wind. And I'm like, what are you kidding me? So I had to look at all her races in the wind and how she did in compared to others. And she was a very strong athlete, not the fastest, but the strongest. And she went out there and ran the 5th fastest time in Division III history, won nationals, the college's first national champion. But that exposure and experience and stress from before, the pressure was a privilege. It really hardened her to be able to handle emotions. And for me too, which as a coach, like everyone's like, what are you doing in the second one? I'm like, she's here to win. I remember my head coach talking to me and he's like, dude, you sound a little cocky. And I said, I'm not saying it cocky. Like I have ultimate confidence that this kid is going to run the best, like the best she can. And that's good enough. And I think it's a win and it's okay to say that. So anyway, all right, Rob, 4 years of training for 1 shot at glory. Got to be immense pressure when you're expecting to win. Hell, I feel pressure trying to finish 16,000 in a marathon. Nobody's watching. So yeah. And the TV's on and all that stuff, but it's not their first time on TV. It's not their first time in front of a camera. It's not their first time under pressure. And I think we forget that. Yeah, Kirsty, you are watching, Rob. We're watching you. Okay. Maybe never type that in all caps. So yeah. Or an under, yeah, right. Would you say you're nervous before every event when you race to that degree? I think everyone is nervous for every competition they've ever done. Unless it's like a C race. So if anything is of meaning or value, there's nerves. Like I still get nervous before races. Like I watch the athletes and I could feel it. I was around them, Monday through Friday for 3 to 6 hours a day training, like, in different pockets. And I would get to feel them. And when they would do these, the men's team, like going into Beijing, because the women were very good and they didn't have to be at the training center. The guys needed work and they were really committed, and they all lived there, which is a glorified hotel, the Olympic training centers. It really is, especially Lake Placid. It's the middle of nowhere. So when they would bring energy, not even like, it was like they were going to do a race sim, a comp sim. And so like they did the race warm-ups, and I mean, you can, like, I'm getting goosebumps. Like, you can feel it like in the air. Like, you're like, oh baby, like they're ready to put down. Quiet. Some guys handle it joking, like Usain Bolt would do it joking and do all that in front of the camera. Some people are like deadpan, right? So Noah Lyles all crazy, hyped up, having fun, but everyone hands different. But I get goosebumps because you just know when people are ready to go intense, and they would go for it, helmets on, like do all this stuff, all this stuff. And that's important to simulate those things. So that for us, like, we need to use like C, B, and A races, like, to expose our thing. So, like Rob did this. I remember him saying Chicago was his Super Bowl. And I was like, that's a great way to put it, but be careful, right? And he knocked it, he killed it, Rob. You killed it, right? But we use these other events to work on these skill sets and exposure to it. So, I think it just comes down to exposure therapy, or exposure therapy, right? I would think build up races at that degree would be nervous every time, but for different reasons. The hair. Oh, well, thank you, Nesreen. I'm at this like stage where like it could come down and look like Skater Boy from when I was younger in the 90s and middle school that I don't love. Anyway, yeah. Mariana, do you get nervous? Do you get nervous before events? And let's put it to like what like, this is the athlete's career. Like, I'll put it to you. Like, if there's a different kind of event or a big event at Peloton, and maybe you can't talk about it, that's okay. Don't answer it if you can't. But do you get nervous? I mean, you're in front of the camera. You're performing in a certain sense. So I'm curious if you get nervous. I dated someone whose sister was on Broadway, and Colby Minifee. She was on The Longest Night, like a Eugene O'Neill play, and then she's in Amazon The Boys, and she was in Punk Rock. And I was like, hey, do you get nervous? She's like, every time, like every show. And it's crazy. So yes. And before I teach every class, every time I come on here, I'm nervous. I'm like, am I going to make my point clearly or whatever? And just think how I feel. I get nervous for athletes a bit. Like Chicago, I had one person run the 5K competitively, and then 9 people run the marathon. And I remember telling my wife, like, Saturday night, I was like, this is the most nervous I am, because it's like there's still time to like make adjustments if we need or whatever. And it's a lot. And she's like, yeah, I see. Like, she got to really see what I do. And then Sunday, I was like, just once the people get moving, it's like I'm not in control anymore. So, all right, Mariana, but I send a prayer up and tremble before every race and every class. Yeah. So, but I'm sure the first time you were on TV or on camera for Peloton, I'm sure it was a much different experience than today. And so the first time, maybe it's their first time really with the big pressure. And when you're a favorite, the only thing you can do is like, it becomes binary. You can either win or everything else is a failure. And that's sad. Oh, Long Day's Journey into Night. Yeah, she was in that with Michael Shannon and Jennifer Lang, which, by the way, was my first and only Broadway play ever. She's like, Justin, do not come to this show because it's long and it's boring. And this is not really like the show to come for your first. I'm like, no way, you're in Broadway first time. This is a big deal. And I was shutting my phone like off, and people were shushing me because my screen was on, not making any sounds. And right there, I don't deal with that. And I was like, oh, and I looked at my girlfriend at the time, and I was just like, she's like, it's okay. Don't say anything. And the shushers were louder than the people who were turning their phones off. And again, it was just a light, and the show wasn't even playing. Oh, it was 4.5 hours. It was a 4.5 hour show. No. Not doing it. And I got to go backstage. I don't know if I met Jennifer Lang. I don't think I did. But we went backstage and she's like, I told you not to come. I'm like, Kobe, you were great. Cause uh she played the help, the maid. So she was like the comedic relief. I was like, she was great. And it was awesome. But not my cup of tea. So appreciate you, Claudia. Both of you are amazing humans and all of your humanness. Yeah. We need to be more humans. Yeah, Nazreen. Oh my god, I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, like what? I'm like, I literally wanted to talk, but then I would have got shushy. I was like, and they were like, she's like, like, the lights just went out. Like I'm trying to. Okay, whatever. We'll see what's going on. So anyway, I don't think she's been on Broadway since, but yeah, she's on Amazon. She plays the agent. She's a character. Colby Minifee. Great family. But yeah. All right. Listen, all, I had a great time talking to you about some of my experiences with the Olympics over the past 16 years. Kind of crazy. No, 2013, 12 years. Very Hannah and I will take you. Okay, yeah. I don't know. Not a theater guy, but I know all three of you are. So it might be one of these things like like if something's gonna get was it Oscars movies, if something is like, oh, it's like gonna win all these awards. I've gone and watched them and I'm like, I hate all these movies. Like I'm never like these movies are good. It's not my cup of tea. Like I remember watching Drive with Ryan Gosling, was it? And the trailer was just like, well, it almost looked like Fast and Furious. It was like the chasing, and that was the first 5 minutes, and the rest of the movie was so boring. And it won all these awards, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. But anyway, I will trust you guys, and we'll go from there. So yeah, appreciate and thanks for coming, Mariana, and everyone, Nazreen and Claudia, everyone chipping in, and Robert and you guys. I really appreciate you guys coming and yeah, hearing my experience with the Olympics. Something I don't talk about. I mention it, but I don't really talk the details too much. Sometimes I feel like, it's a little bit like this, but there's a reason why I coach where I do. I think I'm able to make a bigger impact and difference than I would if I was coaching at the Olympics. However, I really enjoyed my experience there. It gave me a lot of confidence, and it showed me kind of the full spectrum of athletics, which is really valuable. And I try to impart that on you guys. And I think that's where I'm able to get some success with some perspective when we're having a tough time or different stuff. So appreciate you all here. All right, thanks for joining us. And if you're watching this later, don't hesitate to comment and ask me more questions. Or if something popped up, ask me a question. I'll post on Instagram and YouTube, and we'll chat to you then. But for now, off to dinner. Later, guys. Appreciate you.